I still remember the moment I saw the first live explosion video, and it was like watching history rip itself apart in real time. One moment, millions of us were scrolling through our feeds like it was just another night, and the next, screens lit up with massive bursts of fire over Tehran. Sirens screaming, people running, smoke spiraling into the sky like black vultures circling the end of the world. And I thought to myself, this isn't a drill. This is not some distant conflict we watch in news clips. This is now. And tonight, the reality of war has arrived in a way that no one, not even the analysts, fully saw coming. But before I get ahead of myself, let's slow this down and break it apart. Because what happened tonight is important in ways that go far beyond viral clips and shocking headlines. It's not just that the US and Israel launched powerful strikes against Iranian military sites. It's how they did it, why they did it, and what the world now looks like in the aftermath. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the world feels different, because tonight, something changed at the very core of global power. And by the time you hear the end of this video, you're going to see the full picture. Not just the explosions, not just the panic, but the psychological shockwave that's still spreading across every nation, every market, and every home. Now let's get something straight right from the beginning. What unfolded in Tehran tonight was not a series of random strikes. This was far more precise, far more calculated. This was strategic demolition, surgical explosions that tore through key command centers, missile depots, and military infrastructure, reducing them to rubble within minutes. These weren't fireworks over a city. They were targeted blows aimed at crippling a nation's ability to fight back. And for the first time in months, the world saw just how quickly a regional power can be put on the defensive. But here's something most people don't realize. Explosions on the ground are only the visible symptoms of something much deeper, something psychological. When a nation watches its strongest strategic assets get destroyed on live video, the impact isn't just physical, it's mental. Confidence evaporates, command structures wobble, public morale fractures. This is why Tehran isn't just reeling, it's panicking. Because when the structures you depend on vanish before your eyes, you aren't just left without weapons, you're left without certainty. And fear, as you're about to see, spreads faster than any missile. So let's rewind for a moment and unpack the bigger picture. The stakes, the players, the hidden motivations, and the global ripple effects that are now beginning to unfold. For almost a year, tension between the United States and Iran simmered like pressure under a lid, threatening to blow long before it actually did. Every negotiation, every threat, every intercepted intelligence report, each one was a beat in a countdown most of the world ignored until tonight. Iran had been openly threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point so critical that nearly 1/3 of the world's oil supply flows through it. If that strait is closed, oil prices don't just spike, they explode. Refineries slow, jobs are cut, economies wobble, and every citizen, from Houston to Hamburg, suddenly feels the impact. The United States watched this build-up with growing alarm. America didn't react in desperation, it reacted in preparation. For years, military planners, intelligence agencies, and strategic thinkers have been running scenarios about what would happen if Tehran decided to turn aggression into action. Satellite images, digital intercepts, supply chain monitoring, war games. This wasn't a random policy decision made on a whim. This was decades of preparation boiling into a single devastating moment. And Israel, America's strategic partner, was right there, synchronized and standing shoulder to shoulder in every calculation. When the official orders came down, it wasn't just one nation's decision. It was a coordinated commitment to a military play that few outside of high command saw coming. But now, it has arrived. And arrival is never gentle. Within the first minutes of the attack, Iranian air defenses tried to respond. Missiles lit up the sky, while anti-air systems struggled to keep pace. Civilians poured into shelters. Videos flooded social platforms of frightened families clutching phones in shaky hands. Some tried to capture the blasts. Others recorded moments of silence before sudden jolts of sound, like humanity itself is waiting for fate to decide what happens next. But while the world watched explosions, something else was happening just beneath the surface, a battle for psychological dominance. Because modern war isn't just about rockets and missiles, it's about perception. It's about who controls the narrative, who controls fear, who controls confidence. In Tehran tonight, confidence broke first. General statements turned into urgent radio transmissions. Public bravado dissolved into strategic silence. Leaders who once declared they were ready to close the Strait of Hormuz now scrambled to contain panic within their own borders. This is the power of precision strikes. They don't just destroy infrastructure, they dismantle belief. And belief, especially in times of conflict, is everything. Meanwhile, across the globe, the reactions were immediate. Social media exploded. Analysts fired off hot takes. Celebrities tweeted, reposted, and debated, adding fuel to a fire that was already raging. Every major news outlet broke into live coverage. Stock markets reacted within minutes. Oil futures spiked. Indexes dipped. Investors scrambled. People in New York watched the Tehran skyline burn on their screens. Families in Paris wondered if this would touch their lives. Workers in Tokyo refreshed their feeds every few seconds, trying to piece together how this moment could shift global stability. Here's an uncomfortable truth. In a hyper-connected world, war is no longer distant. It doesn't happen over there. It happens in real time, right in front of you, scrolling on your phone, eating dinner, living your life. And this is why what just happened matters to everyone watching this video. But let's dig deeper, because the US-Israel strikes weren't just tactical. They were symbolic. They were strategic. They were designed not only to damage infrastructure, but to send a message, one that echoes far beyond the shattered remains of military facilities. The message is simple. No longer will hostile threats to global stability be tolerated silently. No more brinkmanship without consequences. And no nation, no matter how emboldened, is untouchable when it threatens the peace of the world. Now let's talk about Iran's response, because the strikes were only the beginning of what will become a psychological battlefield. Within moments of the attacks, Iran launched counterfire. Missiles streaked towards strategic locations beyond its borders, not just in retaliation, but as a signal that Tehran is not defeated, merely wounded. Some of these missiles were intercepted, some weren't. Sirens wailed across neighboring territories. Authorities urged civilians to take shelter, and every alert blasted over loudspeakers added another layer of fear. But here's the twist most commentators miss. When a nation retaliates, it doesn't always mean strength. Sometimes it means desperation. The logic of retaliation isn't always strategic. Sometimes it's emotional. And emotional decision-making in times of war is when chaos takes hold. Now picture this for a moment. You're a citizen in Tehran right now. You've seen your city's defenses crumble on video. You've heard explosions near command centers you once trusted. You're surrounded by friends and family who are confused, scared, uncertain. You log onto social media and see conflicting reports. Some say your leaders are planning nuclear escalation. Others claim your air defenses are on the brink of collapse. And you're left asking yourself, what happens next? That is the psychological battlefield, and it's bigger than any missile. As I'm speaking to you right now, world leaders are secretly on calls, analysts are poring over intelligence feeds, and diplomats are trying to measure the impact on negotiations that haven't even been publicly disclosed yet. This is how geopolitical chess is played, with moves made in shadow rooms long before they hit the public eye. But while the strategists debate, ordinary people feel the shock firsthand. Prices are rising, markets are trembling, investors are jittery, families are anxious. And ordinary citizens like you and me are left staring at screens trying to make sense of pieces that fit together so fast it feels like the world is spinning out of control. Yet amidst this chaos, there is an underlying psychological phenomenon I want you to notice, because it's the very thing that determines how societies survive conflict. When people are scared, They don't just seek information, they seek certainty. They want answers. They want leaders they trust. They want someone who can tell them what happens next. And when they can't find certainty, they cling to emotion, anger, fear, hope, denial, whichever feels closest. Right now, that emotional battle is raging across platforms, feeds, and conversations everywhere. Some voices are calling for escalation. Others are urging calm. Some predict doom. Others predict retaliation. And right in the middle of all this noise are everyday people trying to process reality while juggling fear, curiosity, and cognitive overload. This is the psychological war, and it's just as important as the physical one. Now, let me bring this home for you, because understanding why this matters is just as critical as understanding what happened. When precision strikes obliterate command centers, they don't just destroy buildings, they destroy certainty. When missiles fly, they don't just kill infrastructure, they shatter confidence. When nations panic, the world doesn't just react, it recalculates. This moment in history is one of those seismic breaks, like a tectonic fault line snapping. Once it happens, everything shakes, everything shifts, nothing is the same again. And most people don't even realize it while it's happening. But you, the person watching this right now, you do realize it. You're paying attention, you're thinking, you're asking questions, and that makes all the difference. Because in times like these, clarity beats fear, knowledge beats rumor, awareness beats panic. And people who understand what's going on, not just at face value, but at the psychological and strategic level, are the ones who stay grounded instead of getting swept away by chaos. So here's the truth you need to take away from tonight's events. This is not just a military confrontation. It is a psychological turning point, a moment when global perception of stability, power, and certainty has shifted. And once perception changes, reality follows. Now, this conflict isn't over, not by a long shot. Retaliation could escalate, diplomatic channels might ignite behind closed doors, markets could wobble further, and civilians around the world could feel the ripple effects in ways we cannot yet measure. But one thing is certain. We are living through a historic chapter, one that will be studied, debated, and remembered for decades. And you, watching this right now, are part of it. Not as a passive observer, but as an active witness to the unfolding reality of global conflict in the digital age. So comment below what you think will happen next. Will Iran retaliate? Will diplomacy emerge? Will markets stabilize? Or are we on the brink of a new global phase? Share this video with someone who needs to understand the psychological side of war. Not just the explosions, not just the footage, but the deeper impact that changes nations and lives. And finally, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with us, because this story is far from over. The world has shifted, and every second that passes writes the next page. Stay informed, stay aware, and most of all, stay sharp. Because when history moves this fast, only clarity stands firm.